Hey folks, David Stewart here. Now, you have heard, I'm sure, of pretending to be a different ethnicity in order to gain some advantage. Maybe get a scholarship by saying you're Native American even though you're blonde haired and blue eyed. You may have heard of pretending to be quite religious in order to avoid having to, get a shot or avoid having to do something that you don't want to do. Avoid having to go to work, maybe. But have you ever heard of pretending to be a religion in order to avoid cafeteria food? This was a story that popped up on my news feed recently that I just had to talk about because I think it was so funny. Stanford University has a meal plan. If you are staying in the dorms at Stanford University, you have to buy the meal plan, and it's like $7,800 a year. No small sum in order to gain access to that cafeteria food. Well, students were claiming to be Jainists. That's an Indian religion. It's kind of like Buddhism. I'm not an expert on Jainism, but they have a bunch of dietary restrictions that include not eating any root vegetables. So you have to be vegetarian, but you also can't eat roots because that'll kill the plants. And sometimes you can eat honey and milk, but there weren't any Jain-specific dietary options at the cafeteria. So you had students saying, "Well, I'm a Jainist, so you can't make me pay for the meal plan if I can't eat any of the food that is adheres to my religion." Well, they've solved that problem by offering all kinds of Jain food and having a little corner for Jainists to eat at the Stanford dormitory cafeteria with their mandatory meal plan. I'm going to read you a quote, which I just thought was very funny. A student who previously falsely claimed to be Jain said that the tactic stopped working at the beginning of winter quarter. All of a sudden, RNDE said we're opening Jain dining to accommodate students and put everyone back on the meal plan, they said. The student requested anonymity due to the fear of retaliation. That's from the Stanford Daily, like their school newspaper. So this is a really good example of how certain systems only really work if you make everybody participate. And so cafeteria food is one of them. Now, if you're not from the United States, you may have good food at your school. You may have good cafeteria food at your hospitals, at your schools. I'm aware that in Japan, like, school food is really good. And so if you're one of those people that is like, I don't understand this American hatred of cafeteria food, I will just explain it to you. Cafeteria food sucks ass. It has always sucked ass, and it's always going to suck ass. There's something about the nature of the cafeteria that it is like the slop station. They make it for as cheap as it can possibly be made, and they make it to accommodate the widest variety of tastes, which means it's basically garbage. So, when I grew up, in elementary school, we had a cafeteria and we had cafeteria food, and you didn't want to be a kid who got hot lunch. You had to go get his tray, and whatever they decided they were serving that day, that's what got slopped onto your plate. If you read Captain Underpants or something, that captures a little bit of the American experience of cafeteria food, that it's just bad. And like, it's made by these grumpy lunch ladies that don't care about the food being good or have no palate. And everybody looked forward to Friday. Kids would, all the cool kids brought their lunch, and like the kids who ate hot lunch were not as cool. Growing up, I learned that the kids who ate hot lunch were probably on like some sort of free meal plan. They were on welfare, right? And so we just had this division of rich kids over here whose mom packed them lunch, and the poor kids on that side whose mom was too poor to buy them lunch or too lazy or something and just gave them a $1 lunch ticket. And you had a little red ticket. That's how you bought lunch back then. But on Fridays, people would open it up because they would have pizza or they would have chicken nuggets or something. And if you forgot your lunch, you would have to buy a lunch ticket. I remember having to buy a lunch ticket, and just, even though I didn't want to eat the food, right? I wanted to not eat the food, but it was mandatory because you can't have a kid just not eat lunch. So they would make you buy a ticket from the office. And if you had no money, if you're like, I'm getting out of this by not having any money in my pockets, I'm just a kid. It's like, no, we're giving you a lunch ticket, and then we're going to call your parents and make them bring $1. It was $1. It was $1. So you can imagine how good the food was going to be if you're able to serve it for a whopping $1. Even in 1990, $1 is not going to get you a very good meal as far as like hot meals go. And then you'd have to whatever they put it, the beans that are half frozen and disgusting, and some mystery meat like a meatloaf or something, or like chicken nuggets that are like the worst chicken nuggets you've ever had, and then you have to go sit, and they can't make you eat the food, but they can make you buy it. And so then you throw the food away, waste the food. Don't you feel guilty that there's kids in Ethiopia who have no food? It's like, well, they can have this food. Send it to them. We just really wanted to avoid the cafeteria. And as I've grown up, I've realized that this is like a universal experience, even outside of school. When I when I was a freshman at the university, I didn't stay at the dorms, but I had friends who did. And they had the same experience. They ate at the cafeteria if they were just dead ass broke. If they didn't have any pocket money, mom had cut them off from pocket money, then they had to go and they had to buy the meal plan. The meal plan was mandatory, but you weren't going to get anything that was good nutrition. So like all the people who were athletes, even if they were, if they were like on the O line, they still avoided it. It was just garbage food. Even then, maybe better than, and more choices, I suppose, than what you would have at the elementary school. But then like you go to the hospital and the doctors are like, oh, I have to eat at the cafeteria because I forgot to bring my lunch or something. Like the hospital cafeterias were bad. Just like cafeterias are like the worst food, that everyone wants to avoid the cafeteria. So you have an $8,000 meal plan that you have to buy. Now, the thing is that the students who don't want to pay for the meal plan, it's not like they have to go to the dormitory like cafeteria and eat the crappy food. They just have to pay for it and still buy the good food that they want to eat. They want to have something that tastes good. They want to like manage their own diet. They want to have good food. They have to still pay for the good food, but they also have to pay $8,000 a year for food that they don't want to eat. And so if you give them an out, and the out is like, hey, is there like a way that we can like pretend to be kosher? Like we don't have to eat here because we're kosher. It's like, oh, they have kosher dining. They have halal dining. Okay, they have bad food that's halal. Okay, so I can't pretend to be Muslim. And you just go down the list and you're like, what about Jainists? Jainists don't have to, they can't eat roots, man. So we don't have to, you can't eat, mashed potatoes are offensive to me as a Jainist, right? So you say I'm a Jainist, I actually can't buy your meal plan because you don't have any Jain food. So their solution is, here's the Jain food. And it's like, now we have to buy the meal plan. No one's going to eat the Jain food because that was just a lie to get out of hopefully having to pay for something that they didn't want. So things like this, they don't work unless you have a big buy-in. And you can only have a big buy-in if you force people to have that buy-in. If it was a like direct market relationship, like, you had the like dorm cafeteria, which was crap, but you could go down to the student union and there was a bunch of fast food restaurants that were always packed and people were buying food there. So if you just didn't force them to buy the meal plan and they could buy, and you maybe just had more healthy options there, and they had some, they had healthier options. You could buy a salad there, and they had restaurants that served salads. Kids would just spend their money at the restaurant and they would just have the choices. And the restaurants were able to stay open because people were willing to part with their money in order to buy the food. So, and to make this little closed system, everyone has to buy in, and everyone has to buy in because the food is not good. You have to force them to buy in because the food is not good enough for them to just buy it on their own anyway. They have to be part of the meal plan. And the meal plan is sold as part of like the dorm total expenses. So they may, it looks like housing's maybe not as expensive as it is until you have to buy the meal plan. This is something that you kind of figure out with universities. It's like there's all these fees that get tacked on. There's a student union fee. You got to pay for parking. And parking is sometimes like hundreds of dollars a semester in some places. I remember parking passes being like $150 a year in order to park your car, even to park it at the dorms, right? So you could go somewhere. All of these sort of closed systems. And it makes me think of like unions, right? I did a video about the CTA years ago. CTA was very upset that teachers would not have to pay union dues. 90% of their money was just being donated to the Democratic Party. And it turns out if they were wanted to pay for like, collective bargaining, they could have paid 90% less than what they were paying. It was all just political lobby is what their money was going to. But you can't have that system function in that way and not have it be mandatory. All of a sudden, you'd have to offer something that's good. If people have the option to not pay, then it has to be good enough for them to want to pay. And hey, dorm food sucks. That's why cafeteria food sucks. It is happening no matter what. But I would love your thoughts. Maybe you're from outside the US. I keep hearing about like better school food and stuff outside the US. And every time I look into it, I'm like, why don't we do that here? I'm like, oh yeah, that's why. Because it's actually not about feeding children. It's about having this system. It's about having this, we could call it a socialist system, but having this system that supports things at the lowest possible cost and employs people to do it no matter what, right? We have a huge like free lunch program here. The free lunch program wouldn't work if kids had to buy good food or pay a little bit more for something that was good. If it's like, hey, you have to pay $2 for lunch, but it's better. A lot of people would take that, but it doesn't quite work that way when you have to make it like as sloppy and low quality as possible because of the money involved with it. But anyway, I'd love to have your thoughts and know what you guys think about it, especially if you're outside the US and cafeteria food is not as mimetically revolting as it is here. Have a good one, and I'll see you all next time. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Check out the Patreon if you want some books and some music, and have a great one.